Hi witches! In today's video we are looking at Disability Pride Month. We're talking about disability and chronic illness. I thought I should do something. Many of you found your way to my channel via my video Disability and Witchcraft, where I look at the impact of disability and chronic illness on witchcraft practice. This isn't a witchcraft video, it's a very unusual one where I don't go into anything related to witchcraft, so if it's not for you, that's absolutely fine, and if it is for you, then get comfy and we'll jump right in. So welcome back everybody, thank you for being here, thank you for watching. I'm Wren, I'm known as a cemetery witch because I live on a cemetery and I have several chronic health conditions. When I say several, we're looking at about 20 now. So I thought it would be a really good idea for me to engage in Disability Pride Month and talk about some of my experiences. I've had a whole heap of heart-related stuff diagnosed recently. The last year has been really tricky. It's been a real slog, and I've definitely encountered some ableist comments and some negativity from people. So I thought we'd talk about Disability Pride Month, why we celebrate it, what it is, and then I thought I would talk about some of my experiences and the impact they have on us as disabled and chronically ill people. It's really important that we keep talking about this. I know that many people feel uncomfortable or they're squeamish, but in actual fact about 80% of chronic health conditions and disabilities are actually acquired. That means we're not necessarily born with them, we later develop them as a result of having an accident, or we might have conditions that aren't around in the beginning part of our lives and then develop as we get older. So it makes you think really that illness and disability can strike anyone at any time. It doesn't discriminate, and we can have certain views on disability and chronic illness, and then later on we can become someone who's affected. So I thought we would talk about this. Disability Pride Month is an American thing, but as I have many viewers from America and around the globe, I thought it would be a really good topic to cover. So in the UK we call it Disability Awareness Month, and we also have a Disability History Month which runs from the 16th of November to the 16th of December, so a little bit complex there. I don't know why we don't just pick a month. Disability Pride Month is American. So it started off as an initial day of celebration back in 1990. I'm going to tell you why in a minute, but now it has progressed to celebrating and bringing awareness in the month of July. So it is related to the passing of Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, from 1990. So on the 12th of March 1990 there was a demonstration held at the Capitol where over 1,000 people marched. It was in relation to this act and to the rights and the welfare of disabled people. Can't get my words out today. And basically during the course of the day over 60 activists decided to actually demonstrate how being in a wheelchair and not having great mobility can actually cause a real hindrance, and how you can physically not get to certain spaces. So they ditched their mobility aids, they ditched their walking sticks, they ditched their wheelchairs, some of them, and these 60 plus people crawled up the Capitol, and one thing and another, 104 people were arrested, many of those people in wheelchairs. So this act of civil disobedience brought the topic of disability into the forefront, into people's minds, and on July the 26th, 1990, so a few months later, George H.W. Bush signed the act into law. So the whole point of Disability Pride is basically as a response to ableism and social stigma. And obviously disabled people and chronically ill people around the world have been fighting for this for many, many years. About 15% of the world's population are considered disabled. So we're not talking a small amount of people here, we're talking a huge section of our communities and of the world's population. So I thought I would talk about some of my experiences that I've had recently. I've done a video covering what my conditions are. So in that video about disability and witchcraft, I do heavily go into some of the conditions I've got. I've also done a video on toxic positivity within the spiritual community, and a lot of health related things are included in there because, you know, when you are chronically ill, or even when you have perhaps a disability that you're born with, maybe a learning disability or something like that, say something like Down syndrome, unbelievably, people still don't understand these conditions and they still continue to offer up what they think is helpful advice. So for example, all the time I get, you know, you need to eat more healthier, or healthily. See, my brain and my mouth. Cognitive function is a real issue when you have disability. So for example, you know, my heart is working really hard all the time and that affects my cognitive function. So sometimes it's really difficult to get my words out or to think about what I'm going to say. But yeah, the kind of advice that people offer up where they think they're being helpful is stuff like, oh, you need to eat more healthily, you need to move your body more, and my favourite, you need to be more positive. So I have a connective tissue disorder, so the very makeup of my cells is not correct and is not normal, and that has an impact on the body system. So many parts of my body are failing and breaking, and that's got absolutely nothing to do with my sort of mental disposition or how much I move or how I eat. In fact, if I move too much, it can cause me great pain and distress and I'll simply seize up. So, you know, some of the ideas that people have, whilst they think they're being helpful, there is nothing that they can say that we haven't thought of already. And unfortunately, without knowing someone's personal conditions, you know, you really can't comment. I understand that people are trying to be helpful sometimes, and quite often it's a result of people being uncomfortable as well with disability and chronic illness. So people's attitudes and what comes out of their mouths has a real impact on people that are unwell or are disabled, and really that is what I'm going to talk about in today's video. So one of the little gems that people say, which is quite often meant as a compliment and sometimes it's not, but one that I have been on the receiving end quite a few times is, you don't look ill. It leaves you feeling like you're not believed a little bit, and for many people with complex health conditions like my own, where you deal with the medical system a lot and you deal with medical people a lot, and therefore you are left open to issues and problems and things perhaps not going well because you are dealing with them so often. Quite often there is an element of not being believed. My medical file is like this. I've probably seen about 10 different consultants, 10 different departments for 10 different parts of my body because of my connective tissue disorder. And so there is a tendency to not be believed and to feel like you're not being believed. So when someone says you don't look ill, they might be meaning that as a compliment, but actually it just triggers those feelings of not being heard and being dismissed and, you know, anything related to sort of medical trauma. Other times when it's said, people don't mean, you know, they're not meaning it in a nice way at all. You know, they're saying, well, you don't look ill. This is really, really dismissive, and it's really hard to know how to deal with this because we're not werewolves. You know, the minute you are feeling unwell, or if you are passing from not having any health conditions into a phase in your life when you do, we don't change, we're not werewolves, we don't suddenly look different. For some people, obviously, it is obvious, you know, it is affecting their physical body on the outside, and people can see that there's been a change. But we don't wear a special t-shirt or a special badge or have a special hat that we're supposed to put on that is, you know, issued from the government, which proves that we are in fact struggling and suffering. So I'm going to put a photograph up now of someone who is not very well. Obviously, they are receiving the absolute best medical care and attention that anyone in the land is ever going to receive. But this is what I'm talking about. This person has not been well at all. So it's really, really important to remember that you can look really well and you can have a terminal condition and ultimately die. You can look well and have symptoms and feel really, really awful. And I think for those of us with chronic illness, we get very used to functioning at a level that most other people would find extremely difficult. So we might look well to you, but we can be really, really suffering. And you can look well and have a very serious illness and survive. So there are many, many permutations of looking well and being unwell. People don't make this connection that you can look fine, but that doesn't mean that you're not poorly. And also, our fine, it can look different. So, for example, someone else might think that I look okay because they don't know me very well and they don't see me every day, but actually I look awful compared to what I would normally look like. You know, they're not used to seeing what my normal is. So, for example, you know, people might think that I look okay, but if you look back a couple of years to my videos from a couple of years ago, you can see that there is a vast difference in my aging because I have been unwell, and in particular because I've been having trouble with my heart. So when you're not getting enough oxygen, and I'm actually struggling to get that oxygen in my body now, when you're not getting enough oxygen around your body, then obviously your cells will age so much quicker, and then your physical appearance ages. So whilst you might think that I look absolutely fine, and whilst of course I am going to age over a couple of years, I can see that there has been extreme aging really for the amount of time that's passed. Also, I generally make videos when I'm feeling well. An example here would be the Witching Week. I do, however, tend to film that on the same day in the week if I can. It does move around, but on the whole, I film that on a Friday morning. And if you look at some of the episodes, I'm clearly not very well at all. So it fluctuates. I don't think many people realise that you can have good days and bad days. So even though my heart is not working properly at the moment, and I'm still trying to get that sorted, and I'm still waiting for a referral to a specialist hospital, I do have days where I'm much better than others, even on medication. So there is a lot to consider. People have good days, they have bad days, they can have a chronic condition or even a terminal condition that doesn't change how they look on the outside. Of course, as that person reaches the end, then of course they would look different perhaps at that stage, but the body is incredibly complex and everybody's situation is different, and everybody's body reacts differently to different illnesses, different medications, different situations, and of course what we put in our bodies and how we look after ourselves makes a huge difference as well. I very much try to look after myself as much as possible. That goes from what I eat, to the amount I eat, to what I put in my body, to whether I drink or smoke. I don't do either of those things. I most often drink just water. I get lots of rest. I try to mentally switch off. I try to manage my stress. I have very good coping mechanisms for some things. I try my absolute hardest, and I am a qualified holistic therapist and understand the benefits of doing these things. I'm also privileged enough, and within my household we have the money where I can eat healthily. So there are so many different things at play here. So the other one that I have experienced when someone's been cross with me. They've said something on the lines of, you keep saying how ill you are. Well, yeah, people that are poorly are probably going to bring that up. If they're very poorly, they're probably going to mention it several times over. This statement kind of ties in with the above. Because you look okay and you're trying to crack on with life, there is this doubt from other people. This is ableism, that there is simply no other way to label it or to describe it. I work, I have to work. I've had to create a career for myself. I can't work for someone else, neither physically or cognitively can I do that. The stress has a huge impact on my body and the conditions I have. I also need to be able to control my own hours, and I also need to have space so that if I make mistakes and I get things wrong, it's just my own name that is being judged. You know, I can't be in a position where I am likely to make mistakes because of my cognitive issues. I can't do that for other people. It's too stressful, and I need to be able to set my own hours. If I have a day where I'm not well, I need to just be able to say, I'm not working today. So I have to work I have to do my own thing so that I can plan in advance and I can be ahead. And then that way, if I'm not well and I'm not well for a whole week, it doesn't matter. I can take that time off and I'm not going to be punished for that. I'm not going to be penalised. So many disabled and chronically ill people, either through choice or from kind of being funneled into that situation, many people find themselves down the route of self-employment. It's our only option for managing our health, managing our time, to have some money rather than zero, or to perhaps go beyond the pitiful amounts that are given out to people who are poorly in the UK. I mean, for example, I was on ESA and that was to cover the cost of a health condition or a disability, so lost earnings. And whilst I was very, very grateful to get that money, it was £400 a month. Now that doesn't cover lost earnings, and that is an absolutely pitiful amount to live on. So for those of us who go self-employed, it does give us an opportunity to earn more if we're able to do that, and if we're lucky enough to do that. It gives us a sense of pride and achievement, and it basically it counteracts the issue of being unemployable, which many of us are, even though we don't look it. But the problem with self-employment, and again, I've been on the receiving end of this, is that it's often not taken seriously. Now, this is a bit of a thing anyway. I have found in my own personal experience that people don't take self-employment seriously because you're at home. Because you might be self-employed and not work from home, but I have always worked from home within my self-employment, and people think that you're just off for the day, you know, when actually it's the complete opposite, and it is not an easy choice to make, whether you're able-bodied or not. Self-employment is really, really hard. You've got to find the work, you've got to find that money, you have to bring it in. And you have to do your tax return, you have to do your accounts, and the last thing that you want to do when you're sick is work. And quite often this will actually make disabled people more poorly by working. So it's a really, really difficult situation to be in. When you're self-employed, quite often there are long hours as well, but that can be a better option than working for someone else. So you can put in the hours when you are having windows where you feel better, and then you ease off on the days where you're not well at all. So for example, today I'm feeling really quite well. I'm having a good day, and I'm having a better day than usual. But on Saturday, I really, really struggled. We went for a small walk and it completely knocked it out of me. And I was sleepy for the rest of the day on Saturday, and Sunday I was still struggling. And then I'm much better today, which is quite a few days later. So yeah, it's really, really difficult. You're kind of damned if you do and you're damned if you don't in many ways. You know, as a disabled person with very serious health conditions, I am working. but that doesn't seem to be enough for some people, so it can be really, really tough. I've heard this, I've heard that people talking about their disabled, their conditions, their health conditions, their disabilities, I've heard that referred to as jumping on the bandwagon recently, which is really, really upsetting. A lot of people think that not working, for example, is some sort of an amazing choice and that we're just sat at home doing nothing and it's brilliant. When you don't work, you don't have opportunities, you miss out on friendships, you don't have money, you miss out on having, you know, the latest thing that you want or being able to go on holiday. It is not a career choice. And I feel that calling yourself disabled and being disabled is the same. People seem to think that, you know, by being disabled or talking about being disabled, you're jumping on some sort of bandwagon. No one would choose, rather like they wouldn't choose to not be at work, no one would choose to be in this position in the first place. There is a serious lack of opportunity. Who wants to spend their days being unwell or struggling? I find this this way of thinking really, really bizarre. Why people would think that, you know, we're choosing to say this. So again, kind of almost saying that it's not true because, you know, because you're saying it because you want to jump on the bandwagon. I just find it really, really strange. And I think that if you find it uncomfortable, people talking about illness or disability, then I think that we should keep talking about it. There's obviously a need for us to keep talking about it until everybody gets it and everybody is a lot more comfortable. You can always look away if it, you know, if it's unhelpful to you. Look away in the same way that as people generally we tend to look away with other things like war, for example. I know there are topics that are difficult. I know there are topics that trigger all sorts of feelings within yourself. I know there are topics that make you realise that perhaps you as an individual need to do something or you need to change something. But that is life and that is growth and that is evolving and that is becoming better people. There is still this element of shame, I think, attached, this stigma to being unwell if you know, if people are making comments like these. And I get it to a degree. I do get it. I mean, if you look at me now, I'm well dressed, I've got makeup on, I am clean, but that is also an indication of me as a person, as an individual. Like, I will be that person on my deathbed who will put my lipstick on. You know, if I develop some condition where I was, you know, in the process of dying and I had that time and it was going to happen, as it is, it's probably just going to happen out of the blue, so I need to make the effort all of the time. But the point I'm making is I would be that person who would still manage to get my lipstick on, even if it meant getting my husband to do it. You know, he would have to bathe me every day, I'd have to be in a clean bed. It's just who I am. And this is something as well that when you are assessed for support with your disabilities, that is something that's quite hard to get over to the assessors, is that, you know, you can still take pride in yourself and keep yourself clean and look after yourself, but you can still be absolutely rotten as well. So at the moment, it can easily take me an hour to do the basics. I am so slow in the mornings, and part of that is I need to take my medication and it takes a while for that to kick in and work. So I get it. I get people's doubts. I get people's not understanding of certain conditions or how those conditions can fluctuate and how those conditions can have such a knock-on effect on life, but someone can still present themselves well. But I don't think it's okay to make the ableist comments and to suggest that people who are not well are jumping on some sort of bandwagon or they've got it easy or any of those kind of comments. And, you know, speaking to friends and people I know, some of them with very obvious outward, you know, showing disability, they still encounter these sorts of issues. The point is, people who look fine encounter these issues and people that aren't fine encounter these issues. So yeah, it's really, really difficult. Like, how do we get into the minds of people who just seem to be this sort of pig-headed and not very nice? I don't know. That's why we need to keep talking. That's why we need to keep talking. So talking about fluctuating conditions, I've heard people make comments about other people, like I've been at parties and someone has been dancing and then they've needed their walking stick, or it's been the other way around. They've been using a walking stick for most of the day and then they're dancing without one. I've heard comments made about them, and I've seen these kind of comments online as well. And conditions can really fluctuate. So for example, as I gave the example earlier, I'm feeling okay today, but I wasn't feeling okay over the weekend. And there is a vast difference between these two moments in time. One condition that really has an impact and can change within the course of the day is the connective tissue disorder I have, Ehlers-Danlos. So I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, and what that means is my joints overextend because of a lack of collagen and faulty collagen within my body. My joints can overextend. So what that means is I can start off the day looking completely normal, and then if I were to have activity, depending on the amount, I would then need to use a stick. And then if I really went for it, and my ME quite often stops me from getting to that point. You know, there aren't days where I'm on my feet all day. That just doesn't happen anymore. But if that was to happen, and it would only take a few hours, I would get to the point where actually I would need to sit down and be in a mobility scooter. Now, I don't actually have one. I haven't got to the point where I want to get to that point. It would definitely help. If I could do a long day out on a mobility scooter, it would reduce the wear and tear on my joints, and then that would stop the pain, it would stop the seizing, and it would also be really helpful for my ME. We went to a march just after the beginning of the Ukraine-Russian war. We went to a Stop the War march, and I left in the morning. I was totally fine, but after a couple of hours of standing and walking, I was in absolute agony. And by the end of the day, I was, you know, we were watching Jeremy Corbyn talk and all the other anti-war demonstrators and protesters, and I was just crying, and it was so painful. And my legs, actually my hips and my pelvis, they just seize up because my body, now I'm getting older, it just can't do it. And it's not about me being weak, it's not about me not being positive enough, it is just the mechanical issues that I have with my body. So people often, and I get it, I absolutely get it, they don't understand why I look normal, and before the heart problems I'd go to the gym and I'd do some walking on the treadmill and all of that stuff, and that was massively helpful for my condition. Having good muscle tone meant that I didn't suffer with these issues quite so much. But I can totally understand how they then wouldn't be able to sort of understand seeing me needing a stick. And using mobility aids really helps. We went to see a band called Will Haven on 2 occasions. On one of those occasions I took a stick, and on the other occasion I didn't take a stick. And the day that I took a stick, I was much better. I could shift my weight, I could lean into the stick, people gave me room as well. One of the problems I have, if I go somewhere and I'm in a crowd and I've got to stand for a long time, if I can't move a little bit, then I seize up and I'm in agony much quicker because I need to be able to sort of like move my weight around. So one time that this was a problem, we went to a Man of War gig and we were packed like sardines, so I couldn't really move, and it was agony. But also when you've got a stick, so like when I took to Will Haven, people did give me a little bit more room and they gave me a little bit more time, because when I'm in a crowd of people, when people come through, and this could happen anywhere, it doesn't just have to be a gig, it could be in a busy place somewhere else. When they come through and they expect you to move out their way, I can't always mobilise quick enough, and then sometimes people bump into me or they get annoyed with me. But when I've been stood for a while and I start to seize up, it's really hard to get myself going. And like, I get it. You would see me walking around normally and you just would not be able to tell that those can be issues that I can face. So most people don't see the changes. My husband, he obviously sees all different aspects of me because he is with me all of the time. My mum and dad, I would say that not even they see it, because whenever I see them, I'm visiting them. You know, even if we do something for a day, there's probably some element of sitting down and resting. And it's not until I'm in a situation where I really have to push myself, and my pushing myself is not a normal person's pushing themselves, but what I'm saying is an activity or a type of day where I end up in that. One day they will see it, but at the moment they have not seen it. My brother-in-law, I think, possibly sees it. We have spent quite a bit of time with him, and I know that there have been friends that have been with me when I've had heart issues and I've had cardiac events and times when it wasn't going so well. So like, for example, which I've spoken about in the Witching Week, when we had the ceremony for Samhain in Avebury in the middle of nowhere, and we had to walk quite a long way. I thought I was recovering. I thought I was over these heart issues. I thought they were as a result of COVID, and half of them probably are. The rhythm issues probably is related to COVID. Other issues are related to my mechanics, but we'd walked quite a bit and I thought, brilliant, I'm healed from this. Then we got to a point in the walk and we were about to walk up a hill, and it was like someone had punched me in the chest. I had a really, really massive episode of supraventricular tachycardia, and I actually thought that that my heart might stop that day. It was going so hard and so fast that my best friend and my husband had to hold me up, because it was going too fast and the oxygen in my blood was all out, my legs were giving way. I'm now on meds and I'm not having so many of those issues, and they're not as extreme as they were. So again, not everybody gets to see this side of me. When I go out somewhere, I've usually saved my energy, and the payback that I will get afterwards is hidden, but my husband will see that. So I do understand. I understand why people really, really struggle with this, and unless it is something that affects you or one of your close loved ones, again, it's probably, there's lots of people out there who are not going to get it. I get that, but we're not in our full empathy and understanding of disabled people and their conditions and how conditions can fluctuate. So we need to do better, really. We need to do better. No one chooses this path. No one chooses this life. No one would want this life. If I could swap my situation and my set of conditions and be a normal able-bodied person, life would be so much better. It really, really would. I'm not sure that I would have achieved as much as I have, though. There is a silver lining to every cloud, and I think it has made me very determined, and it's made me determined to achieve things, because I have not had the other opportunities that other people have had to achieve. And in a way, some of the things that I've planned and created in the background, so for example, digitizing my grimoire, that has been brought about by a situation where I've spent a lot of time at home, not moving, and that has kind of pushed me into creating something which has kind of lined me up for creating my own job and my own career. So I'm sure that is the way for many disabled people. But yeah, I think if I had a normal life, I think I'd just be working a bog standard job, and I probably wouldn't have achieved as much as I have, certainly not within the witchcraft community. So yeah, there's, the world works in mysterious ways, and I know that's the same for other people I know who have disabilities and illnesses. It's had a positive impact on their lives. Obviously there's the negative parts as well, but it has done a lot for them. And I think maybe that some of this ableism and some of these comments sometimes come about because other people see us trying our absolute hardest. Because generally, if you've got issues and you've got problems, you try your hardest to be as normal as possible. disabled and chronically ill people will always try their best to catch up with everyone else because they're so used to being treated in a way that's not right. So anyway, I'm starting to ramble now, so I'm going to call the video to a close there, but I just wanted to mark Disability Pride Month. I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll be back to the usual schedule of Witchcraft videos from this point on. Okay, sending you lots of love and blessings.